Yes, just to come back to the Heritage Borders of Engagement Network, we decided that today that we'll be reporting on the first phase of the network that has been generously sponsored as a starting award from the GCRF fund in the UK in collaboration with the Arts and Humanities Research Council. We were set to really set up a research program, a collaboration and partnerships on the development of research innovation on humanitarian heritage. Over the course of the past 2 years, and as you have known that it has been difficult across the board, and we have partners from across the globe working on different research projects and under extreme conditions. Yet what we have really managed to achieve during that work was a kind of a journey of exploration and journey of to work together in new ways. So today we thought that it will be a good opportunity for us as the first phase comes to a close and starting the second phase, which will be, as I mentioned earlier, sponsored by Nottingham Trent University in collaboration with our regional partners. This will work actually in a way that we thought that about sharing the lessons that we learned over the past couple of years and mainly the past year, and try to develop and share lessons across different regional hubs. My name is Mohamed Gamal. I'm Professor of Architecture at Nottingham Trent University and the Heritage Borders of Engagement Network Coordinator and Principal Investigator. Some of you will have known the network and its program over the past few years, but it's worth reminding, and my talk today about reporting about this research development over the past couple of years. To give us a number of reminders, and for those who just joined us and were not really around for our previous events, we were set up with an ambition to challenge and transform the perception of cultural heritage, looking at cultural heritage not as a mere cultural property, but actually as an integral component of humanitarian values, experiences, and cultural exchange. And this is really about people, about community, and putting the communities and people at the center. But this does not exist in normal conditions when you are looking at World Heritage sites or international monuments where the government really takes care of and look after. But we are talking about marginalized heritage communities, communities with heritage that has been always sitting on the borders, on the margins, not looked at as a kind of something of an international interest or world heritage in a sense. Yet we understand that communities have their own peculiar heritage, and this is what actually has been sustainable over centuries. But in order to do that, we need to understand that marginalized communities really have their own heritage in danger and always at risk, and they are the first that really suffer from disappearance. And hence we wanted to look at the opportunities, capacity building, and how to embed resilience in those communities, in young generations, and how to, as it has always been the case, heritage has become or were part of a socio-economic models of development. Our approach was effectively, we are working on a number of countries, and it will be naive to think that we will set up a methodology or a concept that will apply everywhere. So we understood that research is about collaboration, and in order to really develop a coherent vision on a principle or even a global agenda, as we're supposed to be doing, we understand that we need to learn from every region, from every research partners, and hence we developed a methodology by which we work for research partners and communities initially at across 3 humanitarian heritage research hubs, one in North Africa was set up in Tunisia, one in the Middle East in Iraq, and one in South Asia and India. And each one of them is not actually about that country, but it's about the whole region. So in Tunisia, for example, there's a lot of connections and engagement with the whole Maghreb and North African region. In Iraq, we have lots of partners from around Iraq, from Jordan, Kuwait, Turkey, and Iran. And from India, we have lots of partners also from Iran and Pakistan and India and different parts. But one important development happened as we grow for such networks, that Egypt has become one of the central areas in which was part of the North Africa hub, but is set up as its own hub. And this is really due to the connection that it has with a number of challenges, number of different countries. So Egypt, and thanks for our partners in Egypt, the National Research Institute for Astronomy and Geophysics, set up the 4th regional hub, and it's the 2nd in North Africa. And interestingly, based on the development of the methodology and approach, we now started developing a new European alliance on humanitarian heritage set to look at the cultural heritage of displaced refugee communities. It's still in development, and we'll be reporting on this as it develops. We hope to really develop a genuine and original transformative and sustainable model for equitable partnerships, and really to try to exchange knowledge, learn from each other, and understand how humanitarian heritage have different aspects, different principles, and different approaches according to the challenge, the context, and country. In order to really capture that diversity and knowledge building program, we were set up to develop a theoretical and conceptual framework for humanitarian heritage. What does it mean, a humanitarian heritage? How it is relevant and related to different communities and different people across different countries. Hence, this was initially, and this the first phase is about really developing that research agenda. And in that sense, we will be learning and exploring and going through territories and working with communities and partners that we have not worked with before. And what was eye-opening is how each regional partner and coordinator in Delhi, like Praxis Institute, and similarly in the University of Wasit, Baghdad and Babylon in Iraq, and other partners in each one of the regional hubs, like in Egypt, like in Tunisia, with the Medina of Tunis partner. Each one of them have taken ownership of that regional hub, have developed collaborations, have built up its own network. So it is becoming like a centralized and it could be very connected network in each regional hub. And we have seen that through the workshops that we have done in Iraq and India, and we'll be having one in Tunisia and Egypt in the next couple of days. Interestingly, we looked at humanitarian heritage not only as a concept, but it started with trying to find evidence-based research, case studies, explorations, what is happening across different cases, different communities in each region. And the workshops that we have undertaken really have helped us to understand how creative community-led cultural practices would really bring about genuine approaches to heritage preservation, not driven by UNESCO, not driven by their national government, but actually by the local people based on their daily activities. And in that sense, once we learn about the challenges and opportunities and how some communities that are connected to creative and art and cultural practice have really sustained extreme challenges, we looked at policy approaches and legislative loopholes or maybe good practices in some instances, and how the national and international policy governance of community heritage sometimes that advocate supporting communities and intangible heritage, but perhaps when it comes to funding and actual moves on the ground, it was much easier for them to look at the material and tangible heritage. Above all, we have been trying to reach out to marginalized groups of women and young people who are always the victims of any challenges or lack of education and opportunities, but also they are the most to suffer from in post-conflict situations. In that sense, really, as I mentioned earlier, we cannot really work on our own. The network grew over the past year. In particular, we started with 5 co-investigators, a small research team, but with every passing months, we have new partners, new researchers joining us, developing new programs, providing new items on the agenda that really we have been trying to explore and investigate. And I'm happy to report that we have really grown, as I mentioned a bit earlier, that from initial 3 hubs, we have 4th, and we have now interested partners from the EU, along with the 4th one in Egypt. So the teams keep growing. And one important and critical thing that our initial funding was very small to really develop to such scale. but we have relied extensively on the goodwill and the interest in the research approach that we are developing. And everyone has been working far, far beyond what we're supposed to be doing, but because they have all have shared interest both into the agenda and things that we are on the starting of a great project. And to them, all the credit will have to go. The partners, as we mentioned earlier, we have academic institutions, but we have also NGOs, stakeholders, we have governmental agencies and institutions similar to the one in Egypt and in Iraq and in India and in Tunisia, with international organizations joining us as part of this incredible effort. Part of what's interesting here, just as you can see, while we were set up with 3 initial hubs, we have most recently joined by an incredibly active partners in Tunisia who really expanded the network, and we started to really see more projects coming and case studies coming from Morocco and Algeria, along with Tunisia as well. The regional hubs, while we're set up really to engage together through workshops and through studying a number of case studies, but actually, as you can see here, we have become really 4 research hubs in India, in Egypt, in Iraq, and in Tunisia. But we have been growing in terms of connection to similar research areas in the UK, and we start to really engage with lots of partners. Hopefully, this map will next time that when we report over the next few months, or perhaps within a year, that will include partners from the EU as well. Each regional hub, to give you a kind of an overarching view, it's about really creating a research base, creating a central point where there's a lot of local and regional partners will be connected to, will understand how the research develops, but also provide lots of easy access to information, knowledge base, and provide avenues where you can really connect with local communities. Local communities in parts of India or in Iraq or in Tunisia or maybe in Algeria won't reach to us. We won't have an access to them. But having a kind of a local partners, NGOs, charities and organizations that really connected to them on the ground will facilitate that. And the only way to approach this is actually to try to develop and invest in the capacity building in such regional hubs. And each regional hub will have a series of partners, and they have grown and worked together in a fantastic way. And that each hub has a research team who have really been undertaking review of the policies, governments, legislations, but also identifying the avenues of engagement with the stakeholders, communities, and groups that are far away from the radar of the governments and international organizations. We have set up tasks for data gathering and case studies for each region, and there is a number of case studies are growing to create a database for comparative analysis. And at the same time, we'll see what are the good practices and what are the challenges and how they are shared or perhaps are different from different regions. Case study database, this is the ultimate goal at this phase, is actually trying to really get as inclusive, as diverse set of case studies from communities who are connected to craft, others who are connected to heritage sites, a third one that are connected to research and legislations and governance. But at the same time, we should not really lose the focus that it's about the mobility of cultural heritage and how we connect those case studies to being tangible or intangible heritage examples and practices. So we have never lost the focus about marginalized heritage communities and groups, and we always try to really make sure that they are at the center of conversation, their voices are heard, and their challenges are understood and well recorded. During the course of the past 9 or 10 months, we have been really able to develop through the regional research hubs. If you have joined us or you are already part of our network, you will have attended the first workshop that took place in Baghdad in Iraq on the 20th of August 2020, which included over 45 speakers from across all cities and communities in Iraq, and they have underlined how the challenges are evolving and have become really connected to a lot of national and regional issues in Iraq. Of course, the work in Iraq really connected and built on other incredible research funded by the HRC, like the Nahrain Network and their great work. And we have really taken such kind of support from other research partners in the region that we will hope to continue to support as well. In India, we have done 2 days workshops that really handled between different cities, started with Delhi, but also moved to Ahmedabad. And this was a kind of an incredible example of see how different scopes and focus of challenges. Tunisia joined us a bit late, but they are actually conducting a very fantastic event in tomorrow morning. So I encourage everybody to really join tomorrow for Tunisia in the morning and Egypt, which is another one in the afternoon. And it's a huge diversity of topics and case studies. It's a lot to learn, and we continue to learn every day. Across all those workshops and conferences, we are including a kind of sustained approach where we have 3 tracks. The first one is about research engagement, is about really understanding the local challenges and different views from the regions. Researchers who are really have been working on these issues for many years is just coming and really underline how those issues have evolved and developed. But also when it comes to communities, we insist always about really underlining and listening to and talking to communities and their representatives. And in India in particular, you have seen incredible examples about how communities who perhaps have no access to education, but still maintain their incredible creativity and co-creation of art and craft across different places, from art and music to the craft and making of bangle and others. But at the same time, we cannot really do that ignoring the negotiation of power, the process through which really priorities of development and sustainable development of communities and cities really in place. So we try to really engage with policymakers, try to look at the governance models and how we can support that going forward. So we have really, over the past year, we have maintained to develop a kind of a more of an in-depth insights through those case studies and examples of reviews to develop what we call a theoretical discourse on humanitarian heritage. And this is a kind of what we set up at the start about really looking at how humanitarian heritage, perhaps it's not really against the national heritage, but in a way, another way to explore its forces, its assets, and how such kind of approach really will help us to re-look at heritage from a different perspective. Not from the top-down approach, not from the privileged view which you can see on international media or UNESCO websites information with due respect to everything that they do, but actually there are lots of other layers of cultural heritage that comes from communities and the agencies of preserving that heritage. We always appreciate and support the perspectives and responsibilities that the huge responsibility the UNESCO and its conventions really do to preserve our cultural heritage, built and national built heritage, intangible heritage, and cultural heritage. But also we understand that such kind of approach and responsibility comes with lots of burdens about negotiating priorities, national agendas, and the international community in certain sense. And that's why, notwithstanding the critical importance of what they do and the huge amount of responsibilities on their shoulders, we try to look at how to mobilize community heritage themselves, how to work on the ground, how to look at those who are off the radar. And through all of this, we have been trying to really looking at cultural heritage as a stimulators for local economic and social well-being. It is not really about looking at the heritage that you preserve in a museum, but actually how the heritage is being generated and developing as part of the socioeconomic process. We have tried, and this has been one of the highlights of the network so far, is just translating cultures and how to learn and exchange knowledge between different parts, how we can really get examples and case studies and review the research reports from different regions. We try always to incorporate a diversity of stakeholders and try to really make sure that we are inclusive in our approach. Through that, we have really developed what we set up as initial 4 tracks or strands for this research, and try through the examples that we have really gathered from different case studies to look at how interrogating legal and policy frameworks and attitude will give us a different vision to humanitarian heritage, studying how cultural and governmental institutions really collaborate and support the work of communities, how we can and through the case studies that you will hear over the next 2.5 days, you will see how the post-recovery plans in Mosul, for example, rebuilding, while looked at substantial losses in terms of built heritage, but perhaps could not really save much of the disappearing cultural heritage of some of the crafts and historic practices. But also we have looked at how the cultural institutions have really supported urban resilience in Ahmedabad in India, and how similar policies really help to support heritage communities in Egypt, Libya, and Saudi Arabia. So there are lots of aspects about how governance and legislations and the international and national governments really look at heritage communities in a different approach. But similarly, we try to look at how the communities themselves have taken agencies of their own way of life, and how this created agencies, capacity building, and sustainable model for really trying to develop a long-term plans and vision for those communities. Examples of creative communities existed everywhere we studied, everywhere we worked, from the Bengal craft and art in Firuzabad in India to lots of different practices in Egypt and in Iraq. So there is a lot of sustained resilience that exists within communities, but what we needed to understand how they operate, what really makes them work, and what makes them sustain substantial and extreme conditions. One of the critical importance here that we have looked at the grievances, how displacement and disappearance that somehow exist in every community and to different extent, but how we can look at some examples like notable denoted tribes in India, for example, have been denied the rights to really have identity, and how they have been really denied the chances to develop their own cultural heritage, yet they maintain to support. But similarly, lots of displaced communities in Syria and Iraq and Northern Ireland have developed similar approaches. So I think we think that we have created a critical mass of studies, case studies, analysis, and review reports from different regions. And instead of boring you with a lot of different aspects, we can really say that we have now accumulated a number of case studies. Some of them already have developed and reviewed and is still at a very advanced stage, like the one from Ahmedabad, Firuzabad, Kalbilia tribes and Shara community in India. Similarly, in Shiraz in Tehran, in Baghdad and Basra and Mosul, Erbil and Karbala and Najaf. But also we have developing ones in Tunisia, Haba, and across Egypt. And we hope to really be able to really share much information about those case studies very soon. Across that past year, we have managed to develop the Engage Network website as a kind of a knowledge sharing platform. And I would encourage you to really look at it in the break or maybe at the end of the day, because you will find a rich information about the different projects that we have conducted, the activities, and perhaps access to lots of videos and calls, talks from the previous events. As you can see that you will find information about different chapters and different regional hubs. And what we have started to launch today, and we are launching today, the Engage Paper series. And we over the past few months, we have been working with different partners about Engage Papers, which is actually a report on reviews to policy and legislations, but also policies and review and case studies. And we will start today, we are launching it, and we'll start to release one by one on a weekly basis. So the first one on the Shara community has been shared online. You can please review it and look at it, and others are still in the pipeline. And we are hopeful that every week for the next 2 to 3 months, we'll be releasing a new paper as part of this case studies. So this will be a database for case studies, but we welcome lots of contributions. The website, as you can see here, diverse range from paper series and events and exchange. The conference today really bring together this multitude of contributions, incredible hard work, and really work in difficult conditions. And huge credit goes to our partners in Iraq, but most importantly to our partners in India, who has sustained a lot of adverse situations in the pandemic spread over the past few months, but they have never stopped working for this project and developing their research accordingly. So we would like you to thank you very much for still being able to be a part of this. Hence, our plan for today, and I'm about to conclude, is just we are really running this kind of novel model of working together across the regions. So we are setting up every half a day for one city as part of this network. We are starting now in the UK, where we will be looking at some of the examples of the intellectual debate about humanitarian heritage. I have incredible partners who are like Professor Mike Robinson, Dr. Gian Salim, and Dr. Andrea Nicholson, the core key UK co-investigator of this network from a start, working, taking from their own time to really support our intellectual debate. We worked together for almost 2 years on developing this network, and they have really been part of how the program and agenda have developed. This later will be joining by Dr. Jenny Westenberg, Professor Chris Reynolds, and Dr. Parnaz Arifian, who really will bring us in global perspective about how the UK have involved in research in different conditions. In the morning, that's our agenda for the morning. Then we'll have a break for 1 hour where we'll be moving to Baghdad in Iraq, where we have an intense agenda for multiple talks. Really will take us in the afternoon. And tomorrow morning, we'll start at the same time, 9 o'clock here in Tunisia. We'll be in Tunis, where we have a very busy 10 talks program in the morning and moving to Cairo in Egypt in the afternoon. Third day will be in India, where we have an incredible program of case studies, presentations, and talks that really will cover the studies and the paper series that have developed so far, along with a guest speaker from Iran. Thank you. I have taken perhaps a few minutes more than what I should, but this really, we are really grateful for your participation and joining us today, and we look forward to the next 2.5 days and the next 2 years as well, thanks to the incredible grant that support our research so far. We hope you join and enjoy our journey and learn with us as we progress. We will be setting Q&A towards the end of this session. So I would like to thank you very much and then move to the next speaker,